So Prabhupada gave them that recognition and love and care which they did not receive from their families. Therefore, they would help Prabhupada make prasadam, and that was seva. You see, those hippies were doing seva by cutting vegetables, washing the dishes. That was seva, and Krishna appreciates that. Therefore, your spiritual journey begins with seva. Seva is important, karma. Krishna says, you want to know about me? You do work for me. When you do work for me, I will reveal myself to you. So Karma Yoga is chapter 3. And chapter 4, when you do karma or when you start working for Krishna, Krishna reveals about himself. Therefore, the 4th chapter is knowledge. So from Karma Yoga, we move on to transcendental knowledge. You are doing karma, Krishna reveals about himself, transcendental knowledge. So that's the 4th chapter. And in the 5th chapter, you're doing seva and you receive some knowledge. And with that knowledge comes detachment, and also it all goes hand in hand. First you do seva, then Krishna reveals a little bit about himself. So you get jnana, knowledge, and you get detachment. And then the next chapter is action and Krishna consciousness. So there you're doing seva, Nishkam Karma Yoga. So you're connecting with Krishna, you have knowledge, and you have detachment, right? That's the 5th chapter. So now you think, okay, I have arrived. I know about God. Krishna has revealed himself about him to me. Okay, so I am situated in knowledge. I have detachment, and I'm doing action in Krishna consciousness. What now? So that's not the end of the story. Then comes the 6th chapter, Dhyan Yoga. You see, when you become complacent, that's when Maya attacks. This is Maya's kingdom, Maya Devi's kingdom. We are living in Maya Devi's kingdom, and she is employed by Krishna to check on who is a serious devotee and who is a non-serious devotee, and that's her task. So the moment you become complacent, Maya enters. And they say that Maya enters through a pinprick, very subtly, very slowly. It doesn't come as a big attack. When you're chanting every day, okay, 16 rounds you're chanting, and one day you're a little tired and you say, oh, well, every day I'm chanting. It's okay. Today I'll just stop at 15. I'll see tomorrow. What happens? Nothing. Just one round less. You see, that's how Maya attacks. Maya comes through a small pinhole, and then you get habituated to lessening your number of rounds. And then you say, okay, well, not much of a difference between 15 rounds and 14 rounds. Chalega. I think 14 is good enough. Slowly, 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 you are coming down in your sadhana. And before you realize, you are so much down already. So they say Maya enters through a pinhole and she exits through like a hull. In Hindi we say hull, which is a plow. You see, the bullock cart has a plow to do farming. So Maya enters through a pinhole and it gets out with wrecking havoc like a plow in you, in your spiritual sadhana. So one has to be extremely careful of Maya. The Bhagavatam has got a lot of stories where devotees, serious spiritual sadhakas have reached the pinnacle of their sadhana and they have fallen down back to where they started, or even worse. where they've fallen down. So the 6th chapter is Dhyan Yoga, which tells you how to focus your mind onto your goal. Don't let distractions get you. The next 6 chapters are primarily about Bhakti Yoga. In my previous video, I had said about how the entire Bhagavad Gita can be divided into 3 sections. The first 7 chapters is basically about karma yoga. The next 6 chapters, the middle part of Gita, chapter 7 to 12, is about Bhakti Yoga. And the last 6 chapters is about Gyan Yoga. And you can think of it as an example of a sandwich where there are 2 breads and in between there's a jam. The bread by itself is dry and boring, but it's a sweet jam in between that makes a sandwich tasty. So Bhagavad Gita is so tasty because of the beautiful 6 chapters right in the middle of Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 7 to 12, which is all about bhakti. So chapter number 7, God talks about himself for the first time. So up to 6th chapter, you have become eligible to hear about God. You see, before that, you are not eligible. You are not qualified to hear about God. So chapter number 1, 2, 3, Karma Yoga, 4, the transcendental knowledge or Divya Gyan, 5th, action in Krishna consciousness, Krishna Bhavana Bhavik Karma, and 6th, Dhyan Yoga. So you are acting in Krishna consciousness with full focus, with 1 point focus. You've been successful in keeping Maya Devi away. Maya Devi can attack you through any of your weakness, any weak spot. That is where Maya gets you. So by 6th chapter, you proved your eligibility. And now Krishna starts to reveal himself. So the 7th chapter, God tells about himself. And the title of the 7th chapter is Knowledge of the Absolute. And then after that, the 8th chapter, so God says, Krishna says, now you've known me, you've known something about me. Now you can know how to attain me. You see, you love somebody, okay, you know about that person, this is his name, this is what he does, this is where he lives, this is the address. You've got all that information. And now Krishna is giving you the secret how to attain him, attaining the Supreme. That is the 8th chapter. And then in the 9th chapter, so in the 8th chapter, we understand that there are different pathways that leads to God. There is Gyan Yoga, there is Nishkam Karma Yoga, there is Ashtanga Yoga, okay? But these are different paths that leads up to God. But Lord Krishna says that Bhakti Yoga is the supreme path, is the most best path that takes you to God. So Krishna reveals the secret of how to attain him, and that is through Bhakti Yoga, right? In the 9th chapter, Krishna even gives an even more deeper secret. In Bhakti also, the secret of the secrets, we understand that Bhakti Yoga is the easiest and the best pathway to lead to God, devotional path. And then in the 9th chapter, Krishna gives the secret within Bhakti Yoga. What is the most essential secret within Bhakti Yoga that will lead you to Krishna? So that's the 9th chapter. And the 9th chapter is titled The Most Confidential Knowledge. So we have confidential knowledge, we have more confidential knowledge, and then we have the most confidential knowledge, which is the 9th chapter. The secret even within Bhakti, how to attain the Supreme. And then in the 10th chapter, Lord Krishna says that when you love me, you will see me everywhere. It's a matter of common sense. You see, in the material world, when you love somebody, right? When you're in love with somebody, you see that person everywhere, right? So Krishna says, you love me, you can see me everywhere. I'm in water, I'm in the sun, I'm in the stars. And there is a number of verses that in the 10th chapter, which Krishna says that how a devotee can see him everywhere. And aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. This is a very crucial shloka. It is the one of the chatur shloka of Bhagavad Gita. There are 4 shlokas which give you the essence of Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna goes on to say that among Adityas, I'm Vishnu, among the luminaries, I'm Sun, among the Maruts, I'm Marichi, among the stars, I'm the moon, among the Vedas, I'm Samaveda, and so on and so forth. Basically, Krishna is saying, if you love me, see me everywhere. There's no place where I'm not there. Isha vasyamidam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. This is the first words of Ishopanishad. Lord is everywhere. Every particle in this universe is imbibed, is profusely imbibed with the divine presence. God is everywhere. There's no place where there's no God. When Hiranyakashipu, the demon king, asked his son Prahlad, show me where is your Vishnu? Where is he? Prahlad said, Father, he is everywhere. So Hiranyakashipu points to the pillar and says, really? Your Vishnu is there in this pillar also? Prahlad says, of course. There's no place that he's not present. And Hiranyakashipu gives a big blow with his gada to the pillar, and the pillar splits open, and lo and behold comes Narsingh Bhagwan. Narsingh Bhagwan ki jai ho. See, Lord is everywhere, in you, in me, in the ant, in the bacteria, everywhere. The Vishnu is the Anu of the Vishwa. There's no place that God is not there. So when you have your eyes that is tinged with the kajal of love, premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena, santas sadeva hridayeshu vilokayanti, yam shama sundaram achintya gunaswarupam, govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. When your eyes are smeared with the kajal of love, you will see Govinda everywhere. So that is the 10th chapter, seeing God everywhere. Coming to the 11th chapter, God shows his universal form. So it is as though Arjuna is saying, God, Krishna, till now it is all audio. Let us have some video now. So God gives the audio-visual presentation. So in the 11th chapter, God reveals himself in all his glory, and everything in the universe Arjuna could see right there in right one place within the Lord. Arjuna could see the past, the future, the present. He could see the entire army. He could see all the army soldiers going into the mouth of that universal form. Arjuna could see all the planets, all the Devi Devtas, everything. All is coming out from the Lord. One place. That's the Vishwaroop. So it's like a video performance now. So that was the 11th chapter. In the 12th chapter, Lord says that I live in the heart of my devotees. You see, there is a verse, beautiful verse, where Lord says, I don't live in the temples. I don't live, in Vaikuntha. Where do I live? I live in the heart of my pure devotees. Okay, Lord always gives more importance to his devotees than to himself. So the 12th chapter talks about his devotees. So by 12th chapter, the Bhakti Yoga part of Bhagavad Gita is done. And moving on, we have the last 6 chapters where basically it's discussing Gyan Yoga. So the chapter 13 and 14 talks about obstacles on the path of bhakti. You see, you can't be complacent just because you have reached a certain level of bhakti, your spiritual sadhana, your spiritual journey, complacency can set in. So chapter number 13 and 14 talks about the different obstacles that come in the path of bhakti. And that would be, it can be called as, the title of the chapter is Nature, Enjoyer and Consciousness. So Prakriti, Purush and Chetana, that's the title of the Hindi chapter. So here we come to know about the material world and what are the impediments that can come in the path of your bhakti. The 14th chapter talks about the 3 modes of material nature, Sattva, Raj and Tamas, which again can cause obstacles on your path of bhakti. Chapter number 15 tells you how to overcome those obstacles, right? First, Krishna tells about the obstacles, and then he tells us about how to overcome those obstacles. The yoga of the Supreme Person, or the Purushottam Yoga, 15th chapter, where Krishna gives an analogy of an inverted tree. This material nature is but a reflection of that spiritual sky. And think about it as a tree which has, you see, when you go to a river or some water body and you see some trees on the banks of the river, all right, when you look at the water, what do you see? You see inverted reflections of that tree on the water, right? This material world is like that reflection in the water. It has no substance. It is a mirage. It is there, at the same time it's not there. That is why it is Maya. Maya means that which is not there. So this material was compared to an inverted tree, the reflection that we see on the water. The reflection, does it have any substance? It doesn't, but it's there. You can't deny that it's not there, and you can't say that it is there. It's somewhere in between. It's transient. So this material world is like that, the reflection on the river. So the actual world is up there. The real tree is on the bank, you see. So the material world and the real tree is reflected on the water. So everything that is there on the spiritual sky, you see a perverted reflection on this world. For example, there's pure love in the spiritual world, pure love for Krishna. But when it's reflected on the water, it takes a perverted form. And in the material world, you see lust. You see lust, and there is pure love. So everything is ulta here, perverted reflection. So this world is the perverted reflection, and Krishna tells us how to come out of this. You see, you have to climb that the tree. The branches are downwards and the roots are upwards because it's a ulta reflection. So you have to slowly make your way up to the roots of the tree, and from there you go to the real world, the spiritual world. And then chapter number 16 tells you, now that you know that you know something about the divine and how to reach God and how to serve the God, and you know how the material world is made up of and all that, then Krishna tells you how can you check whether you're progressing or not. You see, he gives some checklist, so you can do a self-assessment. Am I progressing? So the 16th chapter is named the Divine and Demoniac Natures, Asuri or Devi Subhav. So Krishna gives a list of what are the demonic qualities and a list of what are the divine qualities, and one can do a self-assessment. Where do I stand, right? The 17th chapter is the divisions of faith. Now at this point, Arjuna is asking, Krishna, you spoke about various ways to reach you, but what about some people who follow a different faith? What happens to them? So the 17th chapter talks about divisions of faith. And finally, we have the chapter number 18, which is a conclusion, the perfection of renunciation, the conclusive chapter. So everything that has been mentioned so far is brought to a conclusion here. And the most important verse, which has been repeated twice in Bhagavad Gita. This is the only verse that has been repeated twice. Once in the 9th chapter, 19.34, and once in the 18th chapter, 18.65. Man mana bhava mad bhakto mad yajimam namaskuru. Always think about me, pay obeisance to me, worship me, surrender to me, and you'll come to me. So this is the crux of the entire Bhagavad Gita. This verse is so important that Krishna has repeated this twice, the only verse to be repeated twice. So also 18.66 talks about another sutra, a very powerful sutra. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma sucha. Leave all other variegated religions, all other dharma, just leave, drop all that and just surrender unto me. I promise you, I'll take care of you. So that is the crux of Bhagavad Gita. And Prabhupada says, interestingly, the first level of Krishna consciousness is, of course, that you think about Krishna all the time. The second level is when Krishna thinks about you. So when you think about what Krishna thinks about me, that is when you've reached the point of perfection. You see, normally we understand that the perfection of life is okay when you think about Krishna all the time, right? No, but Prabhupada takes it to one level higher. When you start thinking, what does Krishna think about me? Okay, that is a different level. And here Krishna also gives a very valuable advice that no one is more dear to me than one who gives this knowledge to others. So Bhagavad Gita knowledge is not something to keep to oneself. One has to distribute it. And Krishna admits that that person is most dear to me, the one who spreads this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. And we are all trying to earn the love of Krishna. And this is the secret that he says. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Jare dekha tare kaho Krishna upadesh. Whoever you see, give them the knowledge of Krishna, Krishna consciousness. And I have rushed through the entire Bhagavad Gita in 18 steps. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given the most powerful mantra for the Kali Yuga, which is chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada.